in the middle of 2020, under the COVID lockdowns, I found myself, frustrated, dejected, and I was trying to figure out what is my meaning on this earth.
Dejected by what exactly?
By all of the turmoil in the economy, I'd worked in my company for 30 years and we're competing with Microsoft and we couldn't grow. And I thought after 30 years of hard work doing 100,000 things right every year, is this how it all ends? I think in my lowest moment, I looked around and I found the Bitcoin community. And I found Bitcoin, the ideology, which led me to the protocol, which led me to the asset, which led me to the network. And I think it saved my company and it gave me a mission, right? It made me excited to get out of bed every day. It gave me a reason to get up in the morning. And I felt like instead of retiring, right, and just disappearing from history forever, Bitcoin kind of gave me a reason to be, and it really motivated me. And the result was great for my investors, great for my employees. It was great for my mental and physical health. And now everywhere I go in the world, I meet people and they're very motivated. And, they say, well, thank you for, sharing your thoughts because it helped me to get more comfortable. And what I say to them is, well, thank you, because really it's being on the team that motivates you to work so hard. Because I really couldn't do it if I didn't have the support of the community. And I think that Bitcoin is the greatest team in the world. It's like being on a member of a global sports team, like you're all in a fan club. Imagine hundreds of millions of people and they're all rooting for the same team, but there's a twist. There's hundreds of millions of people that are fans, but we're all players. Every single person on this team is on the field playing every day. I'm playing my position, but the crew mechanic in Italy on the flight line is also playing. And the guy on the beach in Brazil is also playing, and people here at this conference are playing. So this is a team where everybody's a fan, but everybody's a player. Everybody's got skin in the game. When we're losing, we're all getting bruised, we're all getting beat up together, and it's like all of us are feeling the pain. And when we're winning, everybody's winning together. And I think that is such a beautiful thing for the world, that you get to join a team, play a game together where the rules are all rigged in your favor. And as I said before, it's the only game in the casino we can all win.
Well, one of your rules of Bitcoin, you have 21 rules of Bitcoin, Michael, is, well, they're all really interesting, but one that stuck out to me is Bitcoin is powered by chaos. So you made a reference to a Swiss bank during World War II, for example. What is this current chaotic environment? What is the chaos currently that will drive Bitcoin to new highs?
Well, there's like 100x more capital invested in the securities, the equities, and the fixed income securities of corporations. And so if we look at the chaos over the past few months, if you're invested in a Mexican company that ships products to the US, when the tariffs change, that's an anxiety-inducing event. If you're invested in a company that sells products into Canada and Canada changes their tariffs, that's an anxiety-inducing event. This morning on CNBC, the story with the breaking news was the EU is considering placing material fines on, I think it was Apple and Google, targeting US-based big tech companies. And, Apple's response is regulations from the EU will prevent us from serving our customers. And the commentator speculates that the fine could be 10% of revenues. And if you're an equity investor, that's got to give you anxiety. So I think the real key here is wars create anxiety. Wars are bad for business. Fires in LA are bad for property. Hurricanes are bad for business. Tariffs, by the way, the end of wars are bad for business. there's a whole set of investors that are having anxiety because if the war ends, their stock crashes. The war on COVID created a lot of equity crashes and crashes of all sorts of assets, explosions of other assets. But when the war on COVID ended, it was really bad for the pharmaceutical stocks. And so the creation of wars, the cessation of wars, the possibility of tariffs, the possibility of no tariffs, all of these things create anxiety. They devalue assets. And, you know, chaos is just a manifestation of entropy. And the whole, you know, when I was at MIT, you know, we had this tongue-in-cheek joke about thermodynamics. We said, here are the 3 laws of thermodynamics. You can't win, you can't break even, and you can't get out of the game. That's the 3 laws of thermodynamics. And that describes entropy. It's like bad stuff's happening, your warehouse is rusting, you know, the highways got blockage, you know, the plane crashed, a storm hit, I have the perfect business, and then there's a hurricane and I have to cancel the conference. Okay, so when will that end? That will never end. But what if I could actually get out of the game? Right? What if I actually could create a business where, here's a business where there are no fires, there are no wars, there are no tariffs, there's no product obsolescence, there are no competitors, right? There's no property tax, there's no rent control, there's no expropriation. What if I had a business that was not facing all those risks? And that's what pure digital capital is, that's what Bitcoin is. But now, what if I posit this? What if I said all the money in the world is facing all that risk, and here's an escape from all that risk, and the only reason they haven't bought it is they didn't know about it, or they didn't have a channel to swap the risky thing for the riskless thing. So Bitcoin is powered by chaos because chaos will never go away. It's always going to devalue all of the traditional physical and financial capital assets. And it's going to be the driver that causes all the smart money in the world to run, to sell their physical and financial assets and to buy a digital asset. And so really, as the world gets educated and as regulators create on-ramps, right? When your bank handles Bitcoin, when a big tech company can wire $1 billion to the bank every week and buy Bitcoin, they'll just be wiring $1 billion and swapping it out because it's easy and it's rational. So that's really what you're looking at, and that's why I think it's just a very elegant and beautiful asset.
So going into the future, Michael, will there be an arms race between superpowers to adopt Bitcoin, and which countries are next?
Yeah, so I think that Bitcoin is critical because, as I said, it's digital energy, and that makes it a digital economic system. And if it's a digital economic system, it means that 1 billion AIs, 1 billion computers, can swap energy and swap capital, things of value with each other at the speed which they can think, friction-free. And when you think about what's going to power the robots, what's going to power the driving cars, if I want to release an AI into cyberspace and have it live, if I want my AI that represents my interest to actually negotiate with 10,000 other AIs every second, it's going to be on a digital energy network. It can't be on a physical or a financial network. So with that as the fundamental, right? The countries that will embrace this first will be the most pro-innovation, pro-technology countries. The obvious one in the pole position is the United States for 2 reasons. Because the US is the most powerful country in the world, and because the US has the most enlightened leadership in the world right now. Over the past 4 years, I've met with regulators everywhere else in the world. I've talked to politicians, If you talk to people in Mexico, in South America, in the Middle East, in Europe, in Asia, they're all looking at whether or not they have permission from the United States to do this. And everyone is afraid to get out from underneath that permission because they feel like they would be cut off from the banking network of the world. So no innovation generally takes place outside of the US except by extraordinarily brave gray market actors. And you can do it, but you can act in the gray market, but you'll never get more than 1/100th of the capital, right? So if you want the entire industry to grow by a factor of 100, you have to do it with a legitimate path. The actor with the legitimacy right now is the United States. After November 5th, what you got was a pro-innovation, pro-digital assets president. And by the way, that's important, but history is littered with examples of candidates that make promises on the campaign trail, and then after they get elected, they slow roll it, and they say, yeah, well, we'll get to that, but in 2 years, in 3 years. And they appoint people, or they promise you to get elected, and then they appoint cabinet members that disagree with you, and they're like, well, I would do it, but the secretary of whatever doesn't want to do it, or whatever, it's more difficult. So what's really profound here over the past 4 months is you have a president that joined forces with the crypto community and the Bitcoin community. They supported him to be elected. He supports them. He appointed pro-innovation, pro-digital assets executives at Treasury, at the SEC, at the CFTC. But even beyond that, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK, and Howard Lutnick, and Kelly Loeffler are all non-financial cabinet members that are also supportive. And then he created a quasi-cabinet position in the crypto czar. And so now you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cabinet members that I can name off the top of my head that are moving forward. And then he proceeded with executive order number 1, executive order number 2, Bitcoin strategic reserve, and then to set the tempo. And he created the air cover for all the cabinet members to act decisively. And so if I had to put my money on a country that's going to be the leader in digital assets, you got to say the United States. And the US has such incredible gravitational pull that I wouldn't be surprised if it draws lots of capital from outside the US, both human capital and financial capital, outside of the US into the US. And it has catalyzed the game theory dynamic here because the US is moving fast. If you're an ally of the US or an enemy or a frenemy of the US, it doesn't matter. You've got to look at this, and they're all going to be drawn into the ecosystem. They really can't afford to ignore it at this point. And so I think that what you have is a catalytic effect that's created a Cambrian explosion in innovation and digital transformation, right? The digital transformation of capital, securities, commodities, tokens, ideas, and currencies. All of those things are about to go at a rate of 10x or 100x faster than they were on November 4th.